Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to take a quick second to tell you about the show's awesome sponsor, Anchor. Back in 2019, when I started this podcast, I didn't know much about podcasting at all. Luckily, I came across Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, it has built in creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can also be heard on all the major platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started now.
All right, welcome to the 805 Uncensored. Today we got a very special panel. We've got the One Big Toilet podcast, Heather Schmidt, Bibi, and CMoney Burns. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Great.
Great.
Glad to be here.
Cool. So tonight we're going to be discussing the Black Bloc, Occupy Wall Street, protesting tactics, some supply chain issues related to the economy, and several other topics. So first things first, let's define what the Black Bloc is for our listeners and people that are on that might not know. The Black Bloc is a protest tactic where people are essentially dressed in all black clothing and they wear protective face masks, and the tactic is frequently used so that protesters cannot be identified by law enforcement. As far as like a brief history lesson goes, anti-fascists started the Black Bloc technique in Germany in the 1970s. They would just wear all black clothing and helmets and just like, facial protective gear. And then over the decades, it spread around the world. So we see it in the United States, we see it in Western Europe, Australia, pretty much all over the place. And so tonight I wanted to talk about how you guys perceive the Black Bloc. Do you think that it is effective? And some of you have children. And so I'm wondering how you perceive the Black Bloc, and if you see the Black Bloc as being people that you don't want to have your kids around, as people that are violent and really just not interested in peace and promoting a message that you believe in. So I guess I'll start with you, Heather. How do you perceive what the Black Bloc movement is about? You do have kids.
Well, I was just thinking about that. I mean, I think there's a difference between, it's to just assume, I personally don't perceive them as particularly violent. I don't think that disguising yourself or, covering your face or whatever is necessarily indicative of violent behavior. Mostly because I think that, especially recently, when people go out and they protest, the police are they declare it unlawful and they start arresting people a little arbitrarily. They don't really they haven't really committed anything, any crimes, And so I don't blame people really for disguising themselves.
Yeah.
So that's my first point. But as a mom, do I not want, my kids go out and they do go to protests. They did the Black Lives Matter protests last year. My older kids did. And this year, for the Women's March, they went out and they were the only two in our city who showed up in our city at Constitution Park for the Women's March just a couple weeks ago. But I don't really feel like I would correlate, if there were people there that were wearing a mask or a helmet or whatever, I don't feel like that would.
So you don't think they're scary? You don't think that they turn people off, at least for you?
No. I don't really see a correlation, I guess if at every single protest, the people, that were implementing the Black Bloc were violent, well, then that would change the story. But to my own understanding, they're not. So, no, I don't really think there's an issue. I mean, you have to have techniques to protest effectively, and if you're going to show up and just get arrested very quickly for no particular reason, I mean, why not disguise yourself a little bit,
Yeah, see, how do you perceive the Black Bloc?
For me, like it's a tactic. It's not like an ideology.
Yeah, it's not a movement or anything.
It's anybody can employ it. It's a way to not be identified in a protest, and there are a lot of good reasons to not want to be identified in a protest. Heather laid a good bulk of them out there. I think as a tactic, it's pretty effective. I mean, I feel like you see a lot less Black Bloc people identified than you see people wearing Trump shirts and Proud Boy polos and stuff like that being identified in protests because they want you to know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's an effective strategy, but I think it can be used by anybody. I do hang out on some right-wing message boards because I like to just kind of keep tabs on those sorts of people. And it's a notion that is slowly sinking in on that side. So I think it's important to keep in mind that it is a tactic that is easily co-opted. It can be easily used by, chaos agents, opportunists, right-wingers, cops, that sort of stuff. It's a strategy, but it's a real base strategy. If you're going to use it, it should be part of some bigger strategy other than just not being identified. Like, there's probably a reason you don't want to be identified, and you're probably doing something in which should be coordinated or strategized on top of just what you're wearing to go do that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One Big Toilet podcast. What do you think about the Black Bloc?
One Big Toilet was my father. Called me Tony. No.
Tony from the One Big Toilet podcast. How do you perceive the Bloc?
I was going to concur with that with Heather and CMoney here is that it's not like I think calling the Black Bloc like it's an organization is like kind of a misnomer in the same way that it's like how we say Antifa, like Antifa is the centralized organization and not just anti-fascists.
Right.
Of like all like walks of life, is that Black Bloc isn't like really like an organization.
Even Joe Biden said Antifa is not an ideology.
Yeah, like it's a strategy. It's not so when we say Black Bloc, it's not like there's like Black Bloc patches or like Black Bloc like there's not a leader of Black Bloc. Like Black Bloc is like guerrilla warfare. It's a thing you do in certain circumstances. Like because I mean it's really great at like curbing like the more militant because I mean like there are guys that like aggressively are like I can see like lots of times where it's like perceived as like LARPing, like there's some guys get like way too into like the show or the procedure of it. But like that's a great group of people to put like if you can have a group of people like that, then just stick them on the Proud Boys who are just also LARPers, and then you have kind of like just two. Like the problem takes care of itself. But ultimately, I said, I would not poo-poo any kind of, like, effective revolutionary strategy. And it's shown that in times it has its place. Because imagine if, like, the J20 protests in 2017, if, like, the guy who punched Richard Spencer, right, like, our great hero, who just vanished off into the crowd, like if he was like a January 6th jag-off, like filming himself like in like doing what he's doing. I mean, that's like we were just saying is that you wear those things because if you do something that the state's not fond of, they'll find you. And like I said,
I thought the Capitol rioters were complete jackasses. They were going into like the most secured building in the world with no masks on or anything.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you can look at that as kind of like a divide between the philosophies. Theirs is a philosophy of capitalism, individualism, egoism. So they want to be identified.
They're also not afraid of the police.
And well, they are the police.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like how many cops have been arrested from that? Where with a more collectivist kind of outlook on stuff, you don't want to be identified. You want to be seen as part of a mass movement.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the Black Bloc. I do think that it is an effective strategy. My concerns with it, however, are just like certain actors that get involved, and this is like very minor. It doesn't happen on a mass scale is what I mean. Just people that are just like mindlessly smashing windows and stuff. I mean, I guess if that's how you think you're going to bring about a revolution, so be it. But like, I personally would like to distance myself from those people because I don't think it has to be mutually exclusive. Like, I think you can dress in Black Bloc and not just mindlessly fuck things up and still push for meaningful revolutionary causes.
I actually would say I believe the opposite. It's the idea of, like I said, if you live in a country that values private property over human life, like the destruction of private property and the outrage outweighing, like when you're protesting police violence, right? The fact that we have a militarized force, an occupying force in this country that's entire job is essentially to protect the interests of private capital. So, like, especially when they're at a point where, I mean, this is an older statistic, but a few years ago, police officers were killing more people than ever and dying less than ever, but yet they were still killing people with relative impunity. So again, having a society that constantly pushes the narrative that the rioters are bad, the rioters protesting murder, state-sanctioned death, are the villains because in their efforts of protesting unnecessary loss of human life, they smashed a few windows. Yeah, you're like, let's be realistic. Like, it doesn't matter because you're not going to convince like a conservative no matter what, right? They've already made their conclusion. But at the very least, like one of the greatest whitewashings of MLK is that at the time of his death, he was seen as a riot starter.
I was going to get to the civil rights movement.
Yeah, a lot of old political cartoons showed Martin Luther King, and just through a decades-long misinformation campaign, were they able to like sanitize that reality. But ultimately, is that history will remember riots. Like, if you look at every major,
He still got shot, by the way.
yeah, right, and it wasn't by James Earl Ray, but that's for another
Yeah.
episode. But yeah, he was the most hated man in America when he died. Like it said, but like every important, like everything, like every right we have, everything that we now take for granted, in every marginalized community that has rights, be it gay rights through Stonewall, the civil rights movement, right? All of these things were granted to us because enough people got so angry that they started fucking shit up. And that's what facilitated change. It doesn't happen through the ballot box. It doesn't happen this. It just happens through cage rattling. So my thing is,
violence does have a place. I will agree with you about that.
Like it's like I always say is that the thing that they don't want to tell you about bullying is that it works. Like if you can push them around, like if you can push them, nobody likes to be pushed. So they'll be like, how do I stop getting pushed? So if it's anything, if it's protest, worker actions, anything that's going to move that needle left, I don't think, especially with where we are in the world, as opposed, like I said, me and Jordan had a great conversation yesterday about like climate crisis and all this other stuff. Like we don't really have the time to question the validity and like the marketability of methods when like the reality is like whatever's going to push the envelope in our direction, whatever that may be, has to just be seen as a necessity at this point in time. Maybe not in the future, but at this point, we kind of have, we got to take whatever options we can get.
Yeah, and
I think it's important to question strategy with that and to really put strategy into focus. Like if you're employing a strategy like Black Bloc to not be identified, but are engaging in street violence, like street violence it's chaotic. You can't predict how someone's going to react or how situations are going to present themselves once you engage in it. It's really easy to start, but it's really hard to control. And chaos is not really a strategy. And if you're like strategizing your appearance before you engage in chaos, it seems a little self-defeating. I feel like, there are plenty justifications for many different levels of violence, like either property damage or sabotage, psychological violence, economic violence, even sort of interpersonal physical stuff. But I feel like there should be a strategy to it. I think it's different to, burn down the house of a CEO of a bank than to just go to a right-wing demonstration and start clocking Proud Boys left and right. Mm-hmm. Right. I think, or like in terms of environmental protest, like spikes in the trees and sand in the gas tank versus like getting in fights with the construction workers. I think you have to go to the source. I don't know if you guys have seen there's a new book that came out that's called How to Blow Up a Pipeline by Andreas Malm. Mm-hmm. And he talks about diversity of tactics in climate justice. And one of his big focuses in it is, if you're going to engage in that, engaging in the source, like wrecking machinery, facilities, things like that. He really advocates against interpersonal violence, really only engaging that under the most extreme forms, like with direct fascism and stuff like that. But I think he makes a really good point about strategy with violence, and I think chaos is not a viable strategy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the people that represent chaos are undermining the entire concept of anarchy, because so many people in the American collective conscious associate anarchy with chaos. And true people that are true to the principles of anarchism, that really pisses them off, like myself.
I like the point that he brought up about going to the source, because I feel like we don't live in a society where people want to go to the source. We want to, like, cancel culture. Let's just say certain things in cancel culture, how, like, let's just say Dave Chappelle, right? Like, everybody wants to cancel Dave Chappelle because of what he said, but nobody wants to cancel politicians or lobbyists or lawmakers that actually make bills and pass laws that disenfranchise communities like the LGBTQ and, like, the Black community, brown communities, like. So in my opinion, I think it's just counterproductive to just keep hammering away at like celebrities and shit like that when it's like, wait, no, let's go to the source and cancel people that really need to be canceled.
Well, in terms of like protests, just like, smashing a Starbucks window is not going to abolish the police.
Yeah, I read about that in Chomsky.
Yeah. So it's all about like going to the source of the problem and not just engaging in that sort of like abstract negativity, if you want to get Zizek about it.
Yeah, I was going to say that was that I think about cancel culture. I think about it is that it's like, for a lot of people, like, we have been like gaslit for like a majority of our lives to think, you're always saying, well, protest with your dollar, like it said, and so if you don't like it, don't buy it. So like cancel culture is that we have like a class, right? Like a class of people, like the actors, like a role, and performers, where we are only feel that we're emboldened in protesting with their dollar, right? Like Americans are so divorced from the democratic process that they don't think that way about their politicians, right? We don't, like, especially because we literally have a system where, you have, like, literally, you have two senators right now that are clearly not supporting the voices of their constituency, and the only solution you have is to vote them both out in their next elective cycle. So a lot of times what happens is like that powerlessness just translates into things that you are convinced you have power over, like petty culture war issues, as opposed to like actually like affecting change on a policy level.
Yeah, I actually had a quote that I wanted to read from the anarchist Harsha Walia. Says, if we're going to talk about violence, we need to talk about corporate sponsors, the state, the military, and the police who commit daily violence on people. So, as we were saying before, like, it's enough to talk about some random people that are wearing black clothing, but we have police officers that are wearing blue clothing that are killing people all the time. Yep. Got the military that's conducting violence around the world. The United States controls like 95% of the world's military bases. That's a monopoly of oppression and violence.
That's real.
Yeah, and I take that quote to also, kind of prompt some sort of justifications. Like, the people who are part of those institutions and part of the power structure are generally going to be like property supremacist type people. A lot of our legal system stands in place to protect the interests of the property classes. And, a lot of those people like to operate by the non-aggression principle. Like, if you don't initiate aggression against me or my property, I don't have any right to initiate it against you. But, if you take their very definition of it, a lot of their economic violence, a lot of what they're inflicting on the climate, and a lot of like what systemic racism inflicts on people could be considered a form of like personal property violence that would justify a violent response to it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if people are looking for ways to kind of use libertarian logic against itself to justify what they're doing, there you go.
I've always said that like with the non-aggression principle, like with ANICAPs, is always like, well, then wouldn't you need like a detailed record and like arbitration system to like conduct any kind of like grievance on like who violated the non-aggression principle and where?
Well, prove the provenance of all your property back to like its original state in nature, which is actually a whole school of libertarian thought that wants like a great reset of property rights so that true libertarianism can be instituted.
Anarcho-capitalism is basically what we have now, but a little bit worse.
Yeah, I said it's like I always like, and it's also like why I believe in like a central state sometimes is like we forget about like how like insane small towns are, right? And if you have like a system that is built upon like voluntary association, there's a lot of like communities like just strewn all over this country that would immediately just say, well, we're not going to voluntarily associate with anybody except for the people that our preacher tells us to. And then you just have like a bunch of like Davidian compounds peppered all throughout the country, and God forbid one of them is like in like a town where the only thing in that town is like a vital railway or something like that. That's what I always said is like you need some kind of stopgap to prevent like basically like.
Sounds like that would just develop into like fucking
towns.
Warlords.
Oh yeah, like I said, that's what I feel a lot of these is that you need.
That's what ANCAPs want.
Yeah, they want Mad Max, like they want low like pedophile Mad Max.
Yeah, you can have child slaves. You can do whatever the fuck you want. No rules.
I mean, look a little bit into Murray Rothbard. He was not really too far off that.
No, really, he wasn't.
Yeah, I said that the quickest way to bury a libertarian is asking their opinion on age of consent. Like,
yeah,
they all have one.
Yeah.
Rape laws.
Yeah, they have one in every state.
Yeah, they're peculiarly well-informed on age of consent laws.
I always made the joke is that like we should lower the voting age to a state's age of consent law and then just see how quickly they make that 25.
Mm-hmm.
I might steal that one.
Yeah. Go for it. You said you don't steal it, you distribute it, comrade.
There we go.
Seize and distribute.
Yeah, seize the memes.
It's the people's riposte.
Taj, what do you think about the Black Bloc? And what are some strategies do you think that leftists could implement to get more of the collective involved in our movement?
Well, to start, I really don't know too much about the Black Bloc situation, so I'm not going to like speak too much on that. But like, I feel like protest is definitely something that everybody should be involved with, you know, on like any side that they want to be on, whatever. But I think going back to what a few of you said earlier about how destruction and all of that stuff doesn't really make a change. I kind of have to semi-disagree with that because it kind of could, you know? And I think it takes.
Well, I think Tony's point was that it could.
Yeah, I said,
Yeah.
James Baldwin had a quote about rioting, and I just can't find it today.
But it's also like what he said, too, where we have to go to the source. So it's like, instead of smashing a Starbucks window, let's smash the window of, you know, one of these politicians or these people that, you know,
A bank.
Yeah, go to the White House. I mean, damn.
Police station or some shit.
There. If everybody flew to the White House for, you know what I mean? If everybody, like, went there, I think things would be a lot different in the United States right now.
Dude, it'd be fucking crazy if we even got, like, one region of the country to show up in D.C. Like, if we got, like, even Ventura County or, like, Orange County or something. Imagine fucking every single person from Orange County just shows up at the White House.
Or imagine, like a statewide walk to...
I was going to say, weren't there a lot of Orange County people there on January 6th?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, you mean a leftist Orange County movement? You know, because there are dozens of us.
It's starting to happen. Like, Orange County is getting more progressive over time.
Yeah, I mean, it is like... It is now, like, it's totally like
Huntington Beach, forget about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's, Jesus Christ. That's,
Ship has sailed.
Yeah, no, that's...
I think that ship leaked oil all over the beach.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Like, again, like conservatives live in the world they want. They just, like, can't contend with the fact that it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's true.
So what would they have bitched about forever if COVID would have never happened?
Oh.
Like, what would have been the culture war thing if there was no COVID? They would have found something else.
Oh, we would. COVID has prevented the floodgates of critical race theory.
Yeah.
Like, right. I mean, like, that's already like a big thing, but because like the mask and the vaccine mandates, like, people have really like stopped talking about, or like it has put critical race theory like on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
Until like this comes around. But I mean, like, I remember, because like I have like a very right wing half of my family, and like I remember as a kid, like when the first political correctness movement of like the early 90s, like 92, 93, when that was like a thing.
The PMRC.
Yeah, like literally when somebody coined the like term ebonics, like that side of my family, it was like, you would have thought that the sky was falling, right? Like, it was like they were just so agog at like the notion of empathy, and like they were just like rolling their eyes at like everything, and it's like it really opened my eyes as like a 9-year-old. Like, Jesus Christ, like these people, like their whole like political ideology is like, can I say the N-word?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my God.
like.
No, you're not wrong at all.
Yeah. And the worst one is that like I got a cousin who's my age, saw the same shit, and she's like one of like those like gaslit, like what are like those fake like right wing media personalities, because she's like pals with Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Oh,
like,
gross.
Yeah, it's just like it's like,
real life.
What?
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, in real life.
That's DJ TJ's girlfriend.
That's and they're and she's
Who's
Gavin
TJ?
Donald Trump Jr.?
J. Trump Jr.
Oh, okay.
Junior's girlfriend. He
Yeah,
was
Diaper
married-
Dawn.
Oh, good. Okay.
She was married to Newsom for a while.
Yeah, she was.
too.
I was thinking about that too. She was married to Newsom, so it's like, and if you kind of look at her, like Newsom and Trump, like she's got a type, and it is just kind of these like greasy shitheads.
But it was a serious step down. Like, he's shorter, he's greasier, he does worse drugs, and has less
he
money.
does like and look, I said Donald Trump's the devil, but like at the same time, like imagine like not like inheriting like an ounce of that dude's charisma, right? Like, it's like you're trying so hard to be like a shit poster like your dad. And it's like,
you know he regrets naming that one after himself.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh, it's obvious that he absolutely hates him.
Yeah. Like, he only likes one of his kids.
Yeah, the one that he wants to fuck.
And he couldn't name her Donald.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, especially now after he named his, like, that slack-jawed son of his.
So gross.
Yeah.
I should have named you Donna, and I should have just named him nothing.
You know that name? I take it back.
Yeah. Did you see
giving it
that,
to her.
as an aside, did y'all see Trump's like obituary to Colin Powell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Like,
It was kind of based.
Yeah, it's just like, and it said he's just, I do like, that is the one thing I do kind of miss, that the guy just like, he was like, just like,
yeah.
like he was a shitposting king, right? Like I said, like he had like the best, like just off the cuff things, because he was like, he's the queeniest president we've ever had. Is like the only way I can really describe it.
But
is that,
I mean, he did cut through, like, there was all this, like, shit-lib knob slobbing about Colin Powell, and he just, he cut through and said, I mean, I hate saying he said what I wanted to say or what I was thinking, but he was in the zone. There's like a Venn diagram.
Yeah, Donald Trump wanted to be Joan Rivers so bad. And like...
Well, make no mistake. The same way...
What?
Did you see his poetry book?
Trump has a poetry book?
Yeah. Yeah, look it
No,
up.
I haven't seen that.
Look it up.
Goodness,
I
might need to
was
look
on
that up
Amazon.
right now.
I was looking up poetry books and shit. I was just like kind of fucking around to see what, and then Donald Trump was the first one that popped up on Amazon. I was like, what the fuck?
Is it ghost written?
I don't know. No, I don't even. I think it's just his Twitter quotes and shit like that. And like,
yeah. Here it is. There's a hardcover.
Yeah.
What is that, like 20 pages?
I don't even know, man. I was tripping out. I was like,
So, like, obviously don't miss any of the Trump policies, but I just miss all the gaffes.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The mean tweets
he
and
was
like
the
the random
only
cat.
one-
Nicknames.
Yeah. He was the, like when he called Adam Schiff Adam Shit.
Oh, my wife hates it. I always refer to Schiff as pencil neck now.
Yeah, right. He's like, or like just the rampant disrespect of John McCain.
Yeah.
Which was like finally somebody's saying something about this piece of shit.
I like people who weren't captured.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Meghan McCain, who is utterly useless. What has she done?
I said, I always have it's like, which one is the most useless, like, presidential
The most annoying
child?
person on The View. Somebody has to take that job.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know which one of the DC fail children is like worse. If it's like a neck and neck between Meghan McCain and Chelsea Clinton.
I was going to say it's got to be Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah, Chelsea Clinton,
Yeah.
I do think Hunter Biden is the best fail son.
Hunter,
though.
Hunter
he's done
Biden-
what all of them want to do.
He's kind of
like
based.
the coolest fail
Dude,
son.
when I saw this, and I'm saying this as a straight white male, when I saw that picture of Hunter Biden in his underwear with the feather boa, and I'm like, dude, I can save him.
I've heard some people say, like, hey, Hunter Biden's a little bit hot.
Yeah, he's like,
He's got like a cigar in his mouth. Like, all right, I see it.
I think when the Hunter's emails or the Hunter's laptop scandal like broke, and the whole scandal was like, this guy makes money to like snort coke and like have sex all over the world, and he has a huge dick, and it's like, okay, who's this gonna like work against? Like,
yeah, and you can tell it kind of irritated. Sorry, go ahead.
No, all I said is that's 90% of male politicians. He's just the one that's getting caught.
Successful.
yeah.
All right, I wanted to talk about hashtag Striketober, guys, because there's a lot of strikes going on around the country right now.
Good.
So, first things first, we have over 10,000 John Deere workers on strike right now. Over 1,500 Kellogg workers have walked out. And I don't know if you guys have heard about this one, but 30,000 Kaiser workers are also in the process of striking because of low wages.
Good.
People have worked the entire pandemic, and they're not raising their wages adequately enough.
Well, and then there's like the IATSE strike.
Yeah,
the Amazon Bessemer plant.
There's a lot.
Is being re-adjudicated by the labor board. There was the Nabisco strike. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's also
Read this.
there's a general strike in Korea.
Yeah, listen to this. This is from ABC News. This is the mainstream fucking media. They said, what to know about Striketober. Workers seize new power as the pandemic wanes. It says, quote, workers have reached a tipping point. One union representative said. Fuck yeah, dude.
and like that's huge too, because right, like remember last year when like everybody was just fawning over the Hong Kong protesters, right? Because like it was like that they were basically,
I remember some people suggesting that the Chinese government implemented COVID to shut down the Hong Kong protesters.
Yeah, they said 3 months before that. Like when the Hong Kong protesters, we're wearing their like Hong Kong MAGA hats, and we're like, this is a fight for freedom, and this is a fight for democracy. While like 150 million people in India, like 150 million farm workers in India were striking last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest strike ever.
You never heard a fucking peep?
No, besides very small progressive publications.
Yeah, like
I heard on like Democracy Now!
Common Dreams.
Like
little places like that. Meanwhile, Hong Kong. So like the fact that that is on ABC News is huge in and of itself. Like it's becoming like too big to ignore, and it's like you can tell that the labor market is going through a shift, because I believe it was Ohio today or yesterday just passed like new labor legislation to allow 14-year-olds to work until 11 o'clock.
I just heard that. Yep. I sent
my God.
So it's just like, every...
A friend of mine said, Shinji the Cuban on Twitter, shout out to Shinji. We were just talking about like imperialism in Cuba and stuff, but he said basically, oh, why raise wages when we can just bring back child labor?
Yeah, right. It's like...
Believable.
I remember a couple years ago when everybody was, I said every basic white person was like, oh my God, it's going to be just like the 20s. And it's like, I didn't realize child labor was going to be part of that thing that we're bringing back.
Yeah.
A couple months ago in our like local, local yokel, like free on your front porch every week newspaper, they did an editorial that was so fucking condescending to kids. And it was like, hey, teenagers, we've got a good idea. Get off your lazy asses and stop like watching Netflix and playing video games and go help out your local Wendy's.
That's
your local small business, your local restaurant is really struggling right now. So we think you're the perfect fix. And I was like, fuck no, my kids aren't the perfect fucking fix. They need to be doing their fucking schoolwork.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, so condescending, and like it was like, why don't you prey on someone that's not a child,
or just like pay wages that people want, and they'll come work for you.
Exactly.
I mean, that might be one solution.
There was that pizza restaurant, probably getting. I think every state that's not California.
I think they were paying their workers like $35 an hour or something.
No, there's this one that it was like a pizza restaurant. He said he was going to share his profits. Let's put it this way. This is after overhead. He was going to share his profits with his staff of that day. It was a Friday, so it's going to be the bigger day. But sharing the profits of a day's worth of work, the entire staff got $78 an hour.
I just found it,
Yeah. Was it Ohio, or do I just...
it was Ohio. Place was called Heavenly Pizza.
Yeah, I just think every non-California state's Ohio. Like, it's just...
That should be a thing. That should just be... I don't know why that should just be a thing.
Yeah, well, that's communism.
I mean, that's the structure of a co-op.
Yeah, and like, that's... I always said, like, that's actually probably the best way to pitch socialism to like
music to my ears.
Yeah, the lumpen proletariat is like a lot of people who just, you're never going to tell them socialism's the way to go. But it's like, if I were to say, why aren't more businesses a worker co-op?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the best way to describe it, right? Like why aren't I always say the biggest failing unions did is that when they had the buying power, they didn't start buying up like the plumbers union should have just started buying up like Roto-Rooter and stuff like that. So there's always a guaranteed union workplace.
Well, I think part of that, though, is that once the unions got really established and their leadership started getting really paid, they didn't want to become the businesses that they were unions for. Yeah. It was more profitable for them to be union executives.
Yeah, I mean, like,
that's why a lot of, the American working class now is kind of black-pilled on unions. It's because of the corruption they were rife with in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and I say this as a steward. Like, I'm a steward in my union now, and it is like, sometimes it's just like it just feels like I'm pissing in the wind, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, every day I come in here and I just, like, and it's always like, oh, so yeah, like, we had a dispute with management, and, like, we sent them a letter, and they said, no, fuck you, eat my ass. And so now I'm going to go over there and eat his ass, and we're not going to do what I said. And I'm always the guy that, like, can we at least, like, try, like, a slowdown or, like, do some kind of act of malicious compliance, like, at least something to kind of show that, like, we mean business. And nothing. And then every worker says, like, okay, hey, like, I'm like, when you go to a steward meeting, it's always like, hey, do this for us or do that for us. And then you have to turn around and be like, well, are you going to fucking work with me on this one? Like, when I say, hey, don't go to work on Tuesday, are you going to go to work? Like, they are, like, super black-pilled to just think that this is, like, another, like unions are just, like, another customer service thing where you can complain about and then nothing happens, really.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's cool that we're at a moment now where people are seeing, like, the strength of unions and workers starting to stand up for themselves. The main story in the news a few months ago was that there's a labor shortage, but somehow they're telling us there's a labor shortage and we're going to be, like, cutting off unemployment for all these people who don't have jobs. Like, when you have a labor shortage, you don't have unemployed people. You're towards a situation of full employment, which, as we know, is not really full employment. But it's a capital strike when capital won't meet the demands of labor. And that's what we're seeing. In August, they said 4.3 million people up and quit their jobs, like the most that's been recorded in the modern era. If we have a labor shortage and the most people have quit their jobs, there's something wrong. There's this huge groundswell of workers who are like, hey, I want to be paid for what I'm worth, and I want to get benefits that mean something, and I want family leave. And go ahead.
I was going to say, what I think's going on is I don't think they're calling it a strike yet officially, but I think that everything that Jordan, you told me about in September is happening now, but they're hesitant to call it a strike because they don't want other people to know what is really going on.
Well, I think
why they're striking.
They're worried about like a domino effect.
Exactly. And then everyone's gonna be like, yeah, fuck that, I'm leaving. Boom.
I mean, their fear is kind of rooted in reality in that.
Yeah, I think that it's not even a strike in the sense that it is collective. Like, I think that what we're seeing is just like the. I mean, like, we always think about, like, revolution as, like, it all happens at once, but reality is that it's
a process.
It's a trickle. Yeah, it's a lot of sparks going off until enough of those sparks are creating a circuit, and then that circuit becomes a network, and then that's how it becomes an explosion. Mm-hmm. So we're just seeing the seedlings of a worker militancy and like a class,
well, working class reawakening.
A new class consciousness with a workforce that is completely divorced from ever knowing what it was like. Because I mean, like, think about who's working today, right? Like, how many people? Outside of like this Kmart worker's been here since 1957. You know, like these anomalous stories. The majority of the workforce entered it in what, the 90s? Mm-hmm. You know, like,
has never known
older workers, the older ends, right? It's like with the, you know, we've called.
Yeah, we were talking about how it was post-Reagan.
Yeah, like the media has called me they've called my generation, millennials, a fucking child for decades, and I'm 37. It's like I'm entering my 40s. You can't still think that I'm a kid. It's like you have to recognize that, oh, hey, all these downward trends you've seen have actual effects on the world at large, and you're going to just create a powder keg of people that are pissed off, and then since they don't have the language because it's been denied them, like this has become a secret truth that, again, like I was like, this is a natural progression of the inner failings of capitalism as Marx like predicted. He wasn't saying this is how it happens. Like this is what will happen, right? This was a prophecy.
Well, that'll naturally come to a head.
Yeah, it was an equation. That it was a literary equation. It wasn't.
Yeah, it's not an ideology. Yeah. It's historical materialism.
And now we're seeing it real time. And the whole point was to try to, again, like convince people that this is, that capitalism, the market will correct itself. And it's like, well, the market's not. The market's not an entity like with a consciousness. It's made up of people.
Yeah. Well, one thing about this labor resurgence and this reawakening of kind of working class consciousness that I think is important to take note of and is concerning is that neither political party is using that to its advantage. Neither are jumping on the working class. Like the PRO Act is kind of dead in the water. You've got like idiots like Ted Cruz getting a mullet and growing out his beer gut to try to look working class, even though like his hands are so soft you could cut them with a fork.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have any genuine working class party that is grabbing the energy that is being expressed. And I think it's a real missed opportunity. And somebody better do it soon because somebody nefarious will if it doesn't get harnessed in a good way. I mean, right-wing populism is a very different animal than like working class populism.
Mm-hmm.
And
I said, just as a quick aside, can you think of a single human being on this planet that looks more depressing than Ted Cruz?
No.
Like I said, that's why I think that like that poor wife of his had that breakdown. She probably just looked at him one time and just said, you know what, like I just need to go on a walk.
I've heard he's straight up the most hated person in Congress.
Yeah, I
believe it.
What's his name? Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham of all people, right? Like a guy who's probably Mr. fucking popular. He said that if Ted Cruz was murdered on the floor of the Senate, you wouldn't have any witnesses.
Yeah, nobody would tell anyone.
Yeah.
I also think that the fact that we don't have anyone in Congress that has ever really truly worked a job and had to work a job like for real and to survive is a problem.
We have a few.
I mean, there's a few,
but like,
let me go back. Yeah, no,
I mean, like
few and far between.
Yeah, but so does the right. I was just thinking about that. Is that like you have AOC, who was like the bartenders, like the
which they also ride her ass for.
Yeah, they ride her ass for it.
It's like she's working class, but also she's too stupid and poor to be in Congress. Like,
and then I mean, like
she went to an expensive college.
Yeah, I mean,
so she's just faking being stupid and poor.
But then Lauren Boebert working at McDonald's and having the
GED.
Having the gun-themed restaurant that gave her trichinosis. That's like,
oh my god, she drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But Taj, I do see your point though, that like so many of our politicians, like we have a political class in America. You have to have a certain amount of money to be able to run for office, to be able to live in DC.
I was going to say the inverse is with like AOC is like you had somebody who came in with the best intentions that is like already, I mean, like being at the Met Gala with like the dress saying tax the rich is like such like a, is that the Mark Davis thing about like the political theater, like how capitalism will like commodify even like a radical movement is that you have her here and then like 2 days later she's
capitalism will sell you the revolution.
Yeah. Is that she votes present on the Iron Dome. So it's like you're already seeing somebody kind of get caught up in the machine. And like that's why I said I have some logical or ideological inconsistencies with Bernard Sanders, but he's like the only guy who I feel has like been like at least like consistent in his conviction, like because even
rock
the things
solid.
sense that like they just want to make sure that like the way they make the bread, like it doesn't matter who's making the bread the way, but they want to make sure the bread is always made the right way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what matters more to them. Like it doesn't matter who's baking the baguette as long as like you don't deviate from how we've been making the baguette for 300 years, right?
Yeah.
Like the wine has to come from here or it's bullshit. Like that's what matters more. And they have like a weird, like French nationalism is really weird on that one. But that's what I say is like Italy has kind of a weird, like where like Italians, depending upon where you're from.
We're back recording, by the way.
Okay. Well, like I'll use this like they are like, or it's like, oh, you're from like the Florenzians, like or the people from Florence, the people from Naples, like they like love each other, but then they also fucking hate each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a sports team, right? It's like you kind of have to have like a weird like soccer team kind of like mentality, but with that implicit thing where like you have no like ill will towards your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that Italy as like would like that would be a great place where you have like a bunch of anarcho-communist like city states.
I'd be down for that. Italy looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to start a small little commune, co-op, whatever we got to do on a very small scale. Shoot. I just had one thing that I wanted to bring up. I have a tab open because I wanted to talk about the Gilded Age too, because wealth inequality in the U.S. has recently surpassed Gilded Age numbers. So this is from Yahoo Finance. I'll read this real quick. In 1913, at the end of the Gilded Age, the Rockefellers, Frick, Carnegie, and Baker families, names all tied to monopolistic power, obviously, held 0.85% of the country's wealth. The richest 0.01%, around 18,000 families, have also surpassed the wealth levels reached in the Gilded Age. So these families hold 10% of the country's wealth today. And by comparison, in 1913, the top 0.01% held 9% of U.S. wealth and a mere 2% in the 70s.
Yeah, so it's like
literally worse than the Gilded Age.
Yeah, and then wasn't it too that like we also always forget like the way it's called the Gilded Age is because it was like a lot of it was fucking fake basically, right? It was like a bunch of fake trim on something that was just like fragile, like it was like a gilded cage. Like it was like actually not stable in any sense of the word, right? It was all based off of like false pretenses, and like we now are like living in like one of the reasons why wealth is expanding so much is that there's like all these like we were like a coupling like from like I'm forgetting the guy's name, the guy from Toyota who created the concept of lean manufacturing, that like you try to produce as little as you can to like guarantee the maximum amount of profits, right? Like a false sense of scarcity, like to the point where now you actually have companies
it's like OPEC.
Yeah, you have companies overproducing and then throwing shit away because it's cheap. It's more affordable for them to make sure their competition doesn't have access to those resources.
What was that, Heather?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, it's because it's more affordable for them to just throw it out, trash it.
But what's even worse is when you find out that there's also like a credit on demand system.
Mm-hmm.
Where now these companies are are production like on demand production, so they like immediately they get a line of credit, and then like as like the second that line of credit opens up, like they're using it to produce or like to pay a producer. So like all you end up doing is creating like this huger bundle of debt, right? This big balloon of debt to the point that these debts are now being bundled and securitized the same way subprime mortgages were in 2007. So it's like we are like literally just watching this balloon.
Yep.
Like to the point where like where we said like Jeff Bezos is worth 185 billion.
Have you seen what's going on with China's real estate system?
Oh yeah, like and that's what. And I actually like I thought last Monday, right, is that we were going to see it. Is that I really am like hoping for that because it'll be it's as morbid as that sounds. Because I actually have a degree of faith that the Chinese government the event of the Evergrande like imploding, will do what we did, but how to do it the right way, in which that they will.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question. So with what's going on with China, I just wanted to ask a question because like I don't identify as like communist, you know? I'm
China's not communist.
socialist. And so what I want to ask is like, what would you say to somebody who is like ultra Republican, right? And they come at you with, well, you want communism, but look what's going on in China. What would your argument be?
I actually have my argument is because that I believe that, because I don't believe that I would say that China is not communism, because I also believe that communism is like.
Well, you can't have a communist country. It literally is. It's non-existent.
Yeah, you can't. Is that I believe that it's like saying if you're a Buddhist, right?
It's like saying dry water.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. We'll say is that like China is a country that believes in communism and is trying to pursue the path towards communism, right? It's like I'm a
Buddhist. That's why they have the CCP.
Yeah, is that I'm a like if you're a Buddhist, you're not enlightened, right? Like that, like communism is actually the enlightenment, right? That is like the transcendent. So is that like, and even like the communist constitution is drafted as this is an ever evolving document, much like we like to pretend ours is, yet we hold our sacrosanct.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is that they understand that you have to make concessions to capital, especially if you are living in a country that is largely agrarian, largely rural, and largely you have a huge population that is isolated from like a state apparatus in the sense that they cannot receive aid when needed, is that you have to make certain concessions. And then as the concession outlives its usefulness or shows like what we're seeing with Evergrande, is that it's showing a conundrum in and of itself, is that my belief is that when the Evergrande implodes, that China will nationalize it.
So what's that? Okay, just
like to a degree, or you will see actual punishment towards the embezzlers, and something that actually is not like where we did is that we had a financial crisis and it just led to an upward transfer of wealth. And then I've seen like in China, when these things happen, they don't lead to like an upward transfer of wealth. In the
Taj, since you don't know this, in China, they actually execute billionaires.
Yeah.
Damn, are you serious?
Yeah, it's fucking based.
Yeah, they do.
What?
Yeah. And so that's what I say is that like ultimately, like I think of this as like is that if I said as I identify as a communist, is that I am currently in a state of revolution where we need to, like with the Chinese Communist Party and Cuba, this is the beginning of a worldwide revolution, right? Like this is the belief that the human race can evolve to a different state of consciousness, which is what I believe that communism truly is the understanding that like when you do psychedelics and you come out realizing that you're a larger part of a greater whole, is that, or you're one insignificant.
It's a really good analogy.
Yeah, you were but a drop in this beautiful ocean. Is that communism is a recognition that if I am that drop in this ocean, that it is my duty to ensure the well-being of everything in this ocean, because I cannot function without any other part of this ecosystem. And that if, like, as a human being who has a different consciousness, I have desires beyond that the earth can give me, but I also have to recognize that by taking that, I have to contribute back. And that means either initially through other humans, and then hopefully later on through like the rest of the world and the rest of this ecosystem I live in, because that's the only way we're going to transcend as human beings, is if we understand our relation, our true material relation to one another in the world itself. And I think at this point, communism is the only viable path towards that realization of the human race.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
Socialism's the middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking to Jordan about that actually not even that long ago. We were talking about communism and the difference between socialism and communism, and how like communism is like the ultimate form, of America and like an advanced like civilization. Because it is. Yeah. Like you provide your basic needs.
Classless, moneyless, no hierarchies.
I say it's the best example of that is Star Trek, because literally,
Yep.
like not the first series because that one's kind of but like
that's true.
when Roddenberry kind of realized like, you know what, I'm kind of a sex pest and I got some problems, so like he did some ayahuasca and shit. And he had his little ego death moment. And that's when like TNG and beyond, like that's full blown communism, right? They're like we have abandoned the concept of money. We have abandoned the concept of private property. And like, that's always the biggest one is like, if you can actually understand, like we live in a world that does not comprehend what private property is because we think that means owning a house. Mm-hmm. But like that, like the complete abolition of private property, right? Because like that does not, and like it shows this. Can
you give Taj he's like a student of socialism. Like I'm teaching him. But like what I'm saying is he doesn't know as much about it as us. So I'm saying and I'm like I always say because like I try to think that because like I am like an ultimately blue collar schmo and I've had to learn this as I go along. So like I said, I will never besmirch somebody for not learning what I just learned like last week. Mm-hmm. Like is that okay? So private property is like I always say like my home is private property, right? It's like. It's private in the sense that you have privacy in your home, but your home is not private property. It's personal
private property. Yeah, it's personal property, right? But private property is property that you own
to profit off of.
Privatized, yeah, right. So it's like so not owning your home is personal property, but your rental unit that you also own is private property. Right. And and if you really think about it, is that we live in a world, like one of the reasons why it is so hard to start a business in this country is because you think about it this way is like if you're running say if you open a Wendy's franchise, right, you have to find space for the Wendy's that you then have to pay rent to, right? Because you don't own the property because the funny thing about land is they stopped making it. And the people who owned it, like, don't give it up, so, but the idea that you can own, like, it's like, I own this land. It's like, so do you farm off?
Yeah. What the hell does owning land mean?
Like, I own it. And then the people who do stuff on it pay me money, right? Like that is the idea. Like that's private property is I own it and people pay to use.
Yeah. Like Taj, Republicans will say the stupidest shit all the time. Like under communism, everybody will be sharing the same toothbrush.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not what that means.
Yeah, it's not the like. But then see, like, what's even more nefarious is like you've heard of like the Great Reset and like why there's kind of like a nefarious thing about Joe Biden calling.
Well, all right, before we go there, I do want to say something. Okay, sorry. So people that say, okay, so if this tax bill goes through, right, the tax bill that's up to be voted on right now or whatever, that if it ever happens, people are saying, well, that's going to cause billionaires and companies to move to other countries.
I actually have a great analogy for this one is that this was an argument that they made during the Bolshevik Revolution that like, we'll just stake up and leave. And what I always tell people is you can't, like McDonald's can leave, but they can't take all the deep fryers with them. Right? Yeah. They cannot take your hunger for a hamburger away from you. Like because we live in a world that has been so poisoned by the concept of supply side economics that we believe that the business owner holds all the power. In reality, in capitalism, the demand side has always had a greater degree of control over the market.
The customer is always right.
So yeah, the customer is always right. Like protest with your dollar, right? Like that. Like I said, there is a degree of truth in that because the consumer ultimately, especially the American consumer, which has been the driving force for world economics for decades, is that we have a lot of fucking power. And so I said, if it's like you know how they say, well, like I don't want to pay you that much because I can find somebody else who will do it for less. It's like that on that same end, I don't want to give my business to you because ultimately I can find somebody who's content with a lesser profit margin than you are to do the same fucking thing. Right. And lots of times it's better. Say what you will as Californians, right? We can all, especially now you can look at it, right? Is that like, you can either go get you can either spend $9 on a McDonald's double cheeseburger meal and kind of feel like the grease like hit the pit of your stomach, or you can spend $7.50 and go to fucking In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
And, you know, politics aside, right? Like I said, that's like, it's like, things like problematic or not, dude, I'm getting my double fucking double.
That's a good ass burger.
No, I noticed that In-N-Out is way cheaper than McDonald's.
Yeah,
it's always been that way.
And
almost.
what's been the start? And In-N-Out pays they pay so good, right?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, an In-N-Out, like I'm sure that the manager of an In-N-Out Burger is probably a job that is more stressful than like police psychologist or whatever, like somebody who's gonna like, I don't know if he's gonna beat the shit out of you in a session, right? Like I'm sure
certainly way more accountability too.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, those guys make $160,000 a year. To manage an In-N-Out, but you're there 6 days a week, 18 hours a day. Yeah, they make insane amounts of money.
They're fucking busting their ass.
And like at the same time, like there's like In-N-Out was just in the news. There's like a franchise, the one in San Francisco, isn't checking people for vaccines.
They won't put the mask on.
Well, no, because they have to show the vaccination status. But you know what? At the same time as like I get like their politics of it, if I'm like if I'm working at a fast food restaurant with like what I've seen, asking people for this kind of shit, there's nobody there to enforce that but some poor kid who's just there to flip cheeseburgers. You know, like when you're telling that guy, hey, you have to check Vax card. You're saying, hey, get punched in the face for the same amount of money you're making now.
Get screamed at.
Last year, somebody went to the Wendy's up in Newbury Park and was told by some kid, you know, like some senior in high school or whatever, sorry, man, we're closed. We're just closing up. And the guy brandished a gun.
Yeah.
So, like, if one of my kids, you know, like if my 17, this was last year. If one of my kids, like if my 17-year-old was going to go get a job, in fact, she got her first job over the summer and she ended up quitting because not everybody in our house was vaccinated yet. And she is asked to come and help with like, you know, some random thing. And it turned out to be a 400-person event. She was like, I don't feel safe here. And it's same with the Wendy's. Like I would say, you know, you need to make yourself feel safe, which means you're not checking people's vaccine cards, you know, or if it's 2 minutes after you close, technically just serve the guy his fucking burger. I mean, you know, it's not worth having somebody pull a gun out. That's the world we live in now.
There's genuinely nothing more dangerous than a white person denied their treat. Like, you know, like,
it's unbelievable.
So I kind of like, I can understand the In-N-Out thing from
like,
that perspective.
Politically, I know why they did it, and I disagree. Logistically, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the same where it's like, do I understand? Like, you know, like when conservatives talk about like the vaccine card and they want to talk about like how like needing to be like shown like status, like as like the concept of that conceptually is kind of sinister, right? That like it's like the papers please kind of idea. Mm-hmm. But what they don't understand is that they're not being mandated this because of who they are, but it's because of what they're doing. And if you can like differentiate that, I can understand like that's why like this is necessary, but I can understand why I also want to ensure this is temporary, but the more you double down and triple down, I'm just going to kind of be like, you know what, fuck you. Cause it's like literally we're talking like the people, the horrible customers that ruin your life as somebody who's ever worked in the service industry. And like the weird and anti-vax weirdos, like that Venn diagram is basically a circle.
I worked with a few anti-vaxxers when I worked at the Greek for a brief period of time, like right after. Oh shit, my phone! It's about to. See, I gotta check my percentage real quick. Okay. Yeah, so I just got a job at the Greek like maybe a month or two ago, and I was walking in the back, and I noticed how everyone was super enclosed, you know. Yeah. And it's like they were just sitting there joking like, oh, my throat hurts, haha, you know, and shit like that. And I just got done talking to the manager, and she said, yeah, everyone here is vaccinated. Everybody's got their, you know, and I was like, all right, cool, you know, dope. I'm going to work here, you know, like, because I need to be safe. You know, I got a grandma who's like 95 years old, and, you know, if she, you know.
Yeah, if you passed on COVID to her, she could die. I totally get that.
So she, you know, she's like, yeah, everyone here is totally vaccinated. And then I hear from different people that they just fucked that vaccine and I'm not getting, and I was just like, damn, this lady just straight lied out of her ass, you know? But that's kind of how desperate they are for people at this point, because they know people are just like, fuck that, you know? Like, so, yeah, it was pretty wild.
Hey, like I said, my daughter, I mean, she took this job, okay, and it was at a country club. And she's a tennis player. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to be stringing rackets. I'm going to be doing all this, you know, it was for tennis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they asked her to come in one day, and her job being for tennis, she's like, oh, okay, they probably have a lot of rackets to string. And it's this 400-person indoor event. And nobody, of course, is wearing masks. And they're not checking vaccine cards or anything like that. And this is like during the whole Delta surge thing or whatever. God. And the funny part of it, though, is that the employees are wearing masks, okay? And there's a band there, and she hears the guys in the band talking about how the wealthiest of the people in our community do not give a single fuck at all who they infect or who they harm or whatever. They just want to have their parties and, you know, and then the workers are all like scared shitless because they're like Taj who, you know, don't want to go home and like kill grandma or whatever. But I can also understand not wanting to deal with like, you know, the country club member that's going to come in and throw like a big fit because you asked her where her vaccine card is, you know?
And you know what? I was saying on a national level, like what...
It's unfair to the worker.
It is absolutely unfair to the worker, and then it's exacerbated even more so when then you also see, like, again, going back to, like, AOC at the Met Gala, or, like, literally what caused Governor Newsom also to almost be recalled is having a maskless event at, like, the fucking French Laundry, like the most exclusive restaurant on planet Earth. It's like you have this entire, like
that made me so mad for so many reasons. And it's like, it just fueled the right.
Yeah, it's like, why would you do that? It's like
with medical professionals, nonetheless.
I always like this, like kind of an aside, but kind of on the same thing. It's like why I always like was driven nuts by like when Hillary Clinton coined the term deplorables, or even more than that, Hillary Clinton was the first person to say fake news. Is that like, and the Republicans just ran with it. And I feel like the Democrats have this problem where like they don't get that like they're getting made fun of. And Republicans don't do it too, but I mean like Democrats don't get that like you like
they don't understand how unpopular they are.
Yeah, like, and I said like they just have but they kind of do, right? Because it's like you ever anybody here see the movie Bulworth?
No. Okay,
it's I think it's a great movie. It's just like it's Warren Beatty is a Democratic senator in California, and he has like a nervous breakdown, and he like it's like such like a trite like 90s trope of like white guy rapping, but like Warren Beatty does like kind of like espouse some of his like socialist beliefs, right? But like in the speech, right, which is a satire of the Democrats. From Beatty, who was like Beatty and like DeVito are the kind of guys that were like Hollywood liberals or were trying to like move it to be like an actual left organization. Like there's some leftists in the Democratic Party, not to like us, but like realistically we can call them leftists. Mm-hmm. But it was his critique of the Democratic Party about how the Democratic Party woos black voters, but then does nothing for them. Right? That's basically kind of the policy of it. But twice in the movie, he says, what are you going to do? Vote for the Republicans? Right? Like, ultimately is that, like, we're stuck with these two, like, we are convinced that we are stuck with these two choices of these two party apparatuses that have revenue streams beyond actually listening to the voices of their constituency. And we're just still trapped in this trapping. But then, like, the Democrats are just, I don't know, man, they're just so much worse at it because they don't realize that they give that
I would
ammo.
also blame minorities that have high positions of power or had former positions of power, like Barack Obama or Jim Clyburn. They are antagonistic towards any revolutionary action for the left.
They said what drives me so nuts about Barack Obama, who like I said he should pretty much change his last name to Dubois at this point. Like Barack
Rothschild.
Obama, Barack Obama sat on his ass for 3 years. Like when we were told that fascism is on the rise, right? Like that Charlottesville, all this stuff, like the shit is going down. Like we need to do something. This is the greatest economic crisis of all of our time. And that dude was just content to fucking sit on his ass in Martha's Vineyard and like sign Netflix deals. And the only two actions he's done as an ex-president have been when he made a bunch of phone calls before Super Tuesday to get everybody to drop out of the race to tank Bernie's chances of winning. And then telling LeBron James to tell the NBA Players Association, like right after the Bucks walked out of.
Oh yeah, he was like, "I'll have a meeting with LeBron," and then he sabotaged the entire strike.
Yeah, he sabotaged, which would have been like, I mean, like fucking John Carlos and Tommy Smith, like fist bumps, like that kind of significance, like times a million, right? Because like LeBron, like it would have delayed like LeBron's comeback. Like it would have been like such a huge thing that would have made, like in my mind, like, as a Lakers fan, as a James fan, love the guy. But if he rode that strikeout, like if like they actually ended the season or whatever, like I'd be like, this is the greatest basketball player of all time, right? Like
imagine if he even refused that meeting and was like, no, fuck that. Like we're gonna have an entire movement.
Yeah, like it just anything like that would have put him that would have made him Jordan and Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I'm disappointed in Barack Obama to say the least, right?
And then there's the primary thing, right? Where he made the phone calls to get all of the centrist candidates to drop out at the exact same time, and then he told all of them to support Joe Biden at the same time, and then Joe Biden was in like 5th place, dead in the water, and then all of a sudden he was sprung to the top, and it was an effort to just sabotage Bernie.
Yeah, it really was. And then it's also like, I think the funniest thing though about it is that ultimately is that like it's backfiring like hilariously, because I think that like what I always say is that America is, or at least like to me, the Democrats are kind of like an abusive boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right. Like every time like you kind of get that. Yeah, like you get that realization, like, no, babe, come on, man, dude, like the band's gonna make it, and like I'm gonna get clean, and like I'm gonna like
it's just super toxic.
Yeah, like it's just super toxic, right? And it's like, no, this is gonna be it. Like all you gotta do is you just gotta do this one last thing for me, babe. You just gotta do this one last thing for me. And you just gotta get Ossoff and Warnock in the Senate, and everything will be better. And then suddenly again, it's like, oh fuck yeah, like I mean,
those fucking people lied. Like, Ossoff and Warnock, like, everybody's gonna get $2,000 checks.
Yeah, right. Like I really want that for you, babe. Like I really do.
But all you gotta do is vote for us.
Or the thing that's so I keep forgetting about the $2,000 check thing because I'm more like fixated on the fact that they promised they would have the fucking majority.
Yeah.
But like they knew. I mean, it's not like Joe Manchin and like his values and his voting record just,
came out of thin air.
Yeah.
They didn't know about it.
They knew that was in play.
But even worse than
they
that,
knew that.
At this point, it's so transparent that they counted on it. Because if it wasn't Joel Manchin and it wasn't Kristen Sinema, it'd be Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all of it, it's just they all lied, bro.
It's political theater. That's why I said
They
need to watch pro wrestling.
I mean, it's like
understand
the 2,000 and then the $2,000 a month. I remember, man. The crazy thing is, I remember when Nancy Pelosi during COVID shutdown back in, I think it was August. It was after the unemployment boost ended. And Nancy Pelosi had an opportunity to sign a deal that would legit cover it until December, right? And then she turned it down. She said, nope, doesn't have what I want.
Because her constituency is...
And the reason she turned it down was because there was something about her city in San Francisco, obviously. Yeah. They were going to build something in San Francisco, and the bill that was presented to her didn't have that. So she said, no, we're not signing this. So it was never really about the people in the first place. No, it was totally about her city.
And it's never been, and I think it's actually even more disgusting about Pelosi is that Pelosi is even I think 70% of her, some insane percentage of her district, lives in poverty, right? She lives in one of those. Yeah. She lives in a district that is
they're
her or her Presidio neighborhood block, and then just a travesty of a neighborhood, right?
The separation of wealth within the city of San Francisco is disgusting. I don't even have words for it.
That's what liberals want. And that's what I said. That's what liberals want. They want as on PC it is they want gay capitalism, right? They just want it's I don't want to kick you out of your home.
You watch South Park?
What?
Do you watch South Park?
I haven't watched it in years, but do they
Do you remember the Sopa episode where they have just a bunch of gentrification that comes into the town? Where they start building yoga studios and boba shops. Yeah, that's what they want.
That's what's happening everywhere, bro. It's happening here in Ventura. It's happening in Oxnard. It's happening everywhere, bro. But literally these. Okay, so just the other day I was on Zillow and I saw these condos that they just built on Thompson Boulevard. And if you know where Thompson Boulevard is in Ventura, it's back probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was nothing but just rundown motels where people go and do meth and shit. Yeah. And they literally demolished a whole section right there and built these condos, these beautiful condos right in the middle of and they're going for $2 million. No, 1.2 million. My bad. 1.2 million. And you can only buy them. You can't rent them. You can only buy them. Now, I don't know how much sense that makes. I mean, because that area is horrible, bro.
But like I said, it doesn't matter because again, where I was saying with that bundled capital, with all the bundled credit, is that there's a lot of people who have like you said, Jeff Bezos is worth $185 million. He doesn't have that liquid. He's not worth that much, but that amount of money can give him the means to buy up large swaths of a resource that can't be reproduced. Again, land, right? The one thing you can't make more of. So in the event of any kind of economic collapse, we now have a situation where the wealthy can then now transfer their intangible wealth into cash. These are the kinds of things that are going on that can only happen through capitalism, right? Only through the concept of private property and having credit based off of hypotheticals that you own shares, right? That your ownership creates value, and that you can or the fact that you can own a fucking football team. How does somebody own a football team? I still think about that a lot. How do you? How do we we
I can't remember. Kroenke, I think that's who it is. Kroenke that owns the Rams. Yeah, he's married to a Walmart executive, but he literally has more money than every single NFL team owner combined.
Yeah,
and you know how much money you have to own a fucking team?
Too much.
This guy single-handedly financed his own stadium. He just wrote a check for $2 billion.
Yeah,
so I want to. Oh, my bad.
Oh, say it.
No, I was just going to show you some of the pictures of the place that I was talking about. And it's funny because they don't have any actual real pictures. So in order to
it's all mock-ups.
You have to, you have to go and see it. So this is funny. Here, let me show you. I don't know if it'll show.
I don't think we'll be able to see it.
So it's got shit like this where it's just
a rendering.
It's oh yeah, but it's all digital. It's not even real people. And then I'm like, what the hell?
You got to pay to play.
They make it look a certain way. So when you go down there, it's oh, it's so beautiful. And then you get down there and you're oh, fuck. But it's just funny the way they do it, man. And it's that's how they're getting people to come.
So they're trying to get you to invest in like a concept, right? It's like, that's how ridiculous we're getting to the point of like ownership, is that like we're trying to like own intangibles, or you're trying to own a house that in the future is going to look like this, right? We can't sell you a product that exists now. You have to sell like this is what happens when you create like the idea of like a fucking NFT. Like now they can sell you they can sell you this house. They can sell you the pre-rendering of the house before it's built. Like, and then you end up with like somewhere like again, what happened in China with the Evergrande thing is that they just, right before this shit hit the fan on it, because I think they knew that was going to happen, is that people bought condos that were to be built, but the purchases were used to buy credit so real estate developers could then further like put more credit down on other. So they didn't buy anything. They just paid off debts and owned a share of this with the hope that will be invested in, like a basically a huge fucking Ponzi scheme. That's capitalism really is. And they failed to make those payments, so they were going to default. So they demolished a bunch of apartment buildings right before they were going to be filled.
That was crazy seeing the footage for that.
Like, and I feel like that's something that like a guy who does that knows that like he's gonna get executed by the CCP at some point, because I feel like that like is just like one of the things.
Oh yeah, that is a no in China.
Yeah, like dude, like you just did extreme landlording, bro. like
somebody bring Mao back.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like I said, I feel that he's coming back. Like like it's. Like we just have that idea, like when you can have, like the front page, when one of the fastest growing subreddits is anti-work, like where like it's people talking about quitting their jobs, and like how great it was to quit their jobs, and then in the middle of it is like, oh, here's this inherent conundrum with capitalism, and it's why we're all suffering, and then you see all like. Again, Reddit, which was for years this like right-wing libertarian shit pit, is now suddenly getting all woke. Like, it means that like the consent manufacturers are losing they don't know how to manufacture anymore, or like they can't manufacture faster than the people are like getting wise to it. It's exacerbated by like how young people, I feel, are so decentralized in like their entertainment media. Because like it is so hard to like, I always think about like Zoomers. I feel it's like the first generation I've seen that really doesn't have like a homogenous concept of a cool.
What do you mean?
It's like because you didn't have you didn't grow up with like Total Request Live or like your entertainment wasn't given to you on cable and time slots, because the access to the internet gave you not only more outlets than the market could give you, because the market didn't understand what you understood before the market could. So by the time that they were able to crack the code, how to crack your brains, because you kind of existed on an outside sphere of the influence, that like it made a point where like marketing like lost the edge, and now like a lot of ads are very much, how do you do, fellow kids, and it's very painfully transparent that it's that way, even though they've always been that way. It's just now they're cynical about it, right? Like there's a Subway commercial with Tom Brady in it, and it's
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, it's
Pokemon
like,
go to the polls.
Yeah, but I said like so there's a Subway commercial where it's like Tom Brady's in it, and all the athletes are like, Tom, you did Subway? And he's like, fuck no, I don't. I'm in this because it's a commercial. Like, he's not even adding the pretense. Tom Brady is like, there is no, like, and I know there's no way
money,
in hell,
asshole.
Yeah, that me, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, is eating this. Like, we all know that I'm like a psychopath on some weird nootropic diet that like
shit that most people can't get.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm eating this. I'm eating experimental fish.
Your grass shake or whatever you have in the morning.
Yeah, right. It's like
what I can bring.
Yeah, you see this broccoli? This broccoli was cultivated specifically for my dietary needs. Like
You know that like secret Norwegian seed vault that we have in case like some apocalypse happens? My shit comes from there.
Yeah. It's like I'm given. They give me the future, like what they are engineering to survive the thing because it's more nutritionally more nutritionally powerful than anything you comprehend. I get that for free.
You're talking about nutrition right now. I actually wanted to bring up this super hilarious thing that me and Taj were talking about the other day from the Wall Street Journal. They're actually talking about this. So people, it's no secret that a lot of people drank a shitload of alcohol during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, that.
And so people are uncomfortable with the term alcoholic. I'm using air quotes for people that are going to be just doing the audio version. But they're calling themselves sober curious. It says a gray area where drinkers suspect they drink too much, but they say that the term alcoholic doesn't accurately describe them. After a pandemic surge in alcohol consumption, new services promise to help drinkers cut back, either temporarily or for good.
That's so fun. That shit was fun.
Sober curious.
And you know what that is? You know what that is? That is like this culture of, and I think that, I mean, like, it's pretty stupid sounding and like, you know, frankly absurd, but I also think that it speaks to like this bigger like thing that we have now. I was just talking about this the other day to somebody about like, we cannot admit that we've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, if you say like, oh man, you know, I really drank a lot during the pandemic and I don't know, I've got alcoholism in my family and I'm starting to feel like I'm, you know, like that would be okay. Like we are unable now all of a sudden to talk about things that we've done that like maybe like are not good, you know? I mean, it's like, and I feel like changing the name to something so stupid, like sober curious.
Yeah.
It's like just another symptom of that, like, inability.
And why is the Wall Street Journal covering that?
I don't know.
How, what? That would be like Forbes covering it. Like Forbes covers the stupidest shit sometimes. And it's like, what is this, first of all? And second of all, why can we not just admit, like, we have a problem?
Also, we went through a lot of stress, you know, during the pandemic. I mean, it wouldn't be unnatural for a lot of people to go, you know, I mean, I drank a lot. Shit, I know.
No, of course it's not unnatural, but you got to be fucking honest if you have a drinking problem.
Well, I agree with Heather on it. I've started calling it where it's like you're too embarrassed to be embarrassed.
And I think a lot of people don't want to admit that they went through a lot of stress.
The problem with is that, like, and this is something that is an indicative issue on the left and the right, is that because we have focused so much on like celebrating the individual, that like we are at a degree where the concept of identity politics has become like an absolute monster. Yeah. Right. Where like if the CIA is doing recruitment ads and they're like, I am a Latinx immigrant and I suffer from imposter syndrome, but I am also a single mother. And yes, my grandfather was a fascist in Nicaragua and he is responsible for the El Mozote massacre, but I am the CIA. And it's like,
that was some of the cringiest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, you're like, what am I watching? That like to the point where I don't feel bad doing the bad accent because like their ad was such a caricature. I wonder, you know, like it's like, like this is like it's like we have created this identity thing to the point where like we celebrate ourselves so much that sometimes we can't take a look back and go like, do I fucking suck?
There's something wrong.
Yeah, because like I said, like it's like wrong.
I found it. I'm gonna play this audio from the CIA recruitment video.
Yeah,
listen to this.
When I was 17, I quoted Zora Neale Hurston's How It Feels to Be Colored Me in my college application essay. The line that spoke to me stated simply, I am not tragically colored. There is no sorrow dammed up in my soul nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. At 17, I had no idea what life would bring, but Zora's sentiment articulated so beautifully how I felt as a daughter of immigrants then and now. Nothing about me was or is tragic. I am perfectly made. I can wax eloquent on complex legal issues in English while also belting Guayaquil de mis amores in Spanish. I can change a diaper with one hand and console a crying toddler with the other. I am a woman of color. I am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I am intersectional, but my existence is not a box-checking exercise. I am a walking declaration, a woman whose inflection does not rise at the end.
I am a
of her
walking
sentences, suggesting
declaration?
that a question has been asked. I did not sneak into CIA. My employment was not and is not the result of a fluke or slip through the cracks. I earned my way in, and I earned my way up the ranks of this organization. I am educated, qualified, and competent. And sometimes I struggle. I struggle feeling like I could do more, be
You can
more
be an
to my
oppressor
two
too
sons.
someday.
And
Yeah, right.
struggle
I
with being
struggle
office when
with
I
the
feel
fact
there's
that
so much more to do.
I have
I
not
used to
funded
struggle
enough
with
right-wing
imposter
militias
syndrome,
this week.
But at 36, I refuse to internalize misguided patriarchal ideas of what a woman can or should be.
Yeah, and this is the problem with
I don't have a problem with that.
Well, it's just
I have a
it's
big problem with that.
it's weaponizing woke discourse to literally work for fucking
It's like,
the
it's
devil.
like, hey kids, come work for the CIA. We're woke.
Yeah, right. It's like,
But it's
But,
not.
I mean,
but it's not.
you can.
It's
be,
nefarious.
Yeah, you can be the
I don't know. I
first.
didn't see an issue with that.
You can be the first
No, what is
genderqueer woman of color
I don't care
to
about
organize a right-wing death squad.
I just think it's like, I think that she worked her way up to the ranks, and I mean, she deserves to be where she's at.
But yes, it's the Central Intelligence Agency.
Well,
And I'm not, hey, look, I get the CIA isn't great. I'm not saying that, I'm all for CIA and Pledge of Allegiance and all that.
But can't you see how this is being used to sugarcoat
lure people? Yeah, I get.
But also not
more female drone strike pilots.
More female guards.
We're always gonna have a military too.
But you don't this is literally
step back. Step back though to her. In fact, I opened my notes app and I typed out what she said, maybe a third of the way in before she started going into all this stuff about working up to this and that. She says, "I'm perfectly made," and I think that is what is so fucking alarming to me, because no, you are not. And when you make a statement like that, you then start to justify yourself all of the things that you're
girl
doing.
boss.
And so then all the things that she does, all the things that she does as a CIA agent or whatever, I don't know, I kind of got hung up on the "I'm perfectly made." You're justifying it because you're perfect. And I think that's the problem with Democrats too, actually, circling back to the Democrats. Their issue is they think they're perfect. Yeah. And the sober curious, they think they're perfect. Yeah, everybody thinks I'm perfect. I am perfectly made. That is a traumatizing.
Or not even just.
It's you literally that entire ad is when a Democrat says, when you question a Democrat, hey, why is it that I vote? Why hasn't Barack Obama closed Guantanamo Bay like he promised, right? And then you get sorry, sweetie, these things are a little more complicated than you think they are, right? It's this.
It's massively condescending.
Yeah, it's
frankly shitting on the left.
Yeah, it's using left rhetoric to justify literal fucking fascism, because that's literally what you said. It's
shitty behavior.
It's
shitty. Yeah.
Back to the sober curious thing.
Where I'm from, they called that Irish.
Yeah, so I just kind of look at it we all went through a lot of shit during 2020, and there was a lot of stressful situations that people were put in that some probably never would have imagined that they'd ever be in. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember the news clips of people literally just walking out with freaking 6-packs of Don Julio. I mean, that was probably me. I did that. But everybody was just walking out with alcohol out of the liquor store. And I'm like, damn, everyone's drinking. But I think it was also because there was a much needed break in the world.
Yeah.
From the world.
Well,
how we're living it.
Is that
that's okay. I mean, it's okay to admit that for some people it went too far. it's okay to admit that. Like
that's my thing. Just be honest.
You know, like a lot of people. Yeah, like a lot of people have had like, you know, an alarming increase in mental health, conditions, like especially depression and anxiety. And, but I think a lot of people, they don't even want to admit that, you know. I have a friend in Texas who, like, the pandemic has made her agoraphobic. Like, she always probably had that, like, anxiety.
Yeah, I got a couple of those
going on.
What's agora? What is that?
Fear of germs.
When you don't want to.
No, that's fear of going outside.
Yeah.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's afraid to go outside. But so the thing that is always striking to me is, like, I'll go on Facebook, you know, and she's, like, brutally honest about it. And she, like, posts about it, right, about being agoraphobic and, like, how, you know, it takes her, like, a full milligram of Xanax to go to the grocery store to pick up, you know, their curbside order or whatever. I mean, she's really going through a lot.
Yeah.
She'll post about this with, like, this brutal honesty, you know, and nobody really engages. But, I mean, like, I appreciate her honesty. Nobody wants to hear about that shit. Nobody wants to hear about, like...
Because we live in America, and at the end of the day, here's the thing. It's knuckle up, fucking buckle down, and don't talk about your feelings because they're irrelevant. You need to make money. And that's what your job is, to make money. That's all it's...
But I was going to say, too, is that, like, there's always that meme about, like, how introverts can never shut the fuck up about being an introvert. You know, and I'm not saying that's your friend, but I'm saying is that we live, like, it goes back to, like I'm built perfect, right? And if you live in a society that tells you I'm built perfect, so I can have a drinking problem, but that's okay because I'm built perfect, right? Like I feel that I suffer from imposter syndrome because I work for the Central Intelligence Agency, but it's okay because I'm a proud Latinx woman, of a child of immigrants and a single mother. So because I rose above, because I'm built perfect, it is okay that I finance this. And I
bet the CIA wrote all of that. I bet she didn't write any of that.
No, that was like I said.
Of course.
That is an
so
absolute.
alarming.
This is Operation Mockingbird, like, in a nutshell. Like, is that like this? Like I said, I just did an episode. One of the recent episodes I recorded for my show on Big Toilet was I talked about the church committee, about, like, the unveiling of things like MK Ultra and the spying that the United States was doing in the 70s, right? And then
whenever somebody's like, the U.S. government would never do that.
The U.S. government do it, and then it's like, okay, here's like literally a
here's a file cabinet.
Like, when you talk about MK Ultra, like it's a secret, it's like, no, this is publicly known, right? Like, Congress said, like, that lady jacked off a dolphin.
Yeah,
like
they tried to destroy every single file and they failed.
Like that is in the report. Like, okay, like this is all facts. We tried to get Martin Luther King to fucking kill himself. Yeah, James Earl Ray wasn't even in the state. Whatever. Like, you know, this is all stuff that's in that fucking document.
They did. The FBI sends him a letter. They're like, we know about your affair.
Yeah. Like, so we have all this, like, evidence of it, and then it's like, okay, what was the repercussions? Like, and then you see, like, it's like, so we learned all about it. It's like, well, they were out in the open. They got caught. What are they going to do it again? And then you hear about Project Shamrock in 2013, where it's like every phone company gives all your phone calls, all your text messages, all your emails directly to the fucking NSA, right? Like, everything you say or think or do, anything you...
Well, Tony, everybody's already stopped talking about the Pandora Papers.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, because who was, you know why? Because
everybody already fucking knew that. What are we supposed to do?
It's like, oh, you mean like the thing I read in the Paradise Papers?
Yeah, what are we supposed to do?
Which was exactly the same thing I read in the Panama Papers?
You mean rich people don't pay taxes?
Yeah,
who knew?
Right. Like, yeah, everything we've been saying this whole fucking time. Like, so, but this whole thing is built on that, well, I'm built perfect, right? Like, you can just be lied to and lied to and lied to. I'm built perfect, right? It's like, is that you consult, if you just fixate on the individual, ultimately it's, you don't need to go to therapy.
Or like
that's all it boils down to.
Not even just like, I can't make a mistake, but like, I can just, not even just like, I'm not able to make a mistake. I can just turn something into a completely different concept.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like literally, it's like that's what we live in an entire world that was like that. Especially after 9/11, right?
Words mean nothing. There's no reality.
Like, we all watch, we all watch 3,000 people die on every TV channel for a week and a half, right? Like we all kind of watch this all
And
at
over the
same
winter,
time.
3,000 people died every single day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like this initial event, right? We all saw something pretty traumatic all at once, right? It was like something that we all probably should have had a real, like, good, like, heart to heart, like a sit down, a powwow, chatted it all out, had like a therapeutic moment, but we didn't, and we've just exacerbated that to the point where, like, literally, a 9/11 a day was happening, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I want,
whatever. Those are just old people.
Yeah. I want to, like, it doesn't matter that those people died. I want to take my mask off and I want to yell at a waitress. Like, that's like why, like, this happened. So it's like we have like an entire.
Can you see that? Like
We made that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying is that like what we need is free therapy, and it should be mandatory.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially now. I mean, we saw so much death. I think it even made us question, like I think it even made us think about it more every day. Like for me, I know I was thinking about but I was thinking about it a lot more than I've ever thought about it.
Okay, but now imagine being 17.
Yeah.
And having, because you're confronted with the same reality, right? Imagine having an entire generation that is now born in a world that does not remember pre 9/11, right? That has just only been born in a ripple effect of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like what kind of nihilistic? That's why I said, that's why even though with no training, with no language of class analysis, every Zoomer, when like spat upon, immediately says, "Fuck this, I'm leaving." Like
I have zero attention span.
Well, and not only that, but not only that. I mean, like, I think what I learned, the thing that I think I learned the most last year when I ran for city council, was how much like 16 to 24-year-olds, like the people I had like volunteering on my campaign and shit, how much they just like, they have so little hope, and so they do not give a fuck. Like you just said, like they're going to get spat on by some anti-masker. They're like, fuck this, I'm leaving, Or
I'm 31 and I don't give a fuck. Like,
a lot of kids are like, I'm not going to have kids. Why would I have kids raise them into this shit? Why would I raise kids with bullshit?
And that's what I said. That's like, did you see like that devious lick thing that was happening in schools for like a while?
Yes.
Where the kids were taking it, but it's like, of course, a group of children is like, and it's funny because like this kind of culminates to the beginning we're talking about. Like this is an example of like how these children are, without even realizing they're protesting. But it's like, this is what happens when you raise a generation without any pretense that you give a shit about them, right? That these children are beholden to institutions, where the only reason why we even support the institutions is because they're institutions, right? It's like literally the iron law of institutions, where they are literally failing us before our very eyes.
Got like literal kindergartners that are completely traumatized because of mass shooting drills.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like the kids.
And it's like, why would you want to raise children in that world?
Yeah, and the children,
and that's why a lot of people don't want kids, and not only that,
not to mention climate change,
and that's why the children,
think about financial stress,
literally the children we are talking about, right?
There's so many reasons why people that are young don't give a fuck, and a lot of it has to do with everything, not just one thing. It's everything. No one's gonna have kids in this economy.
There are so many kids, especially the devious licks thing is such a good point, because it's like you have kids that are really, really good kids, but you're also like making them go through active shooter drills, and so like, or you have a suspicious person go on campus and you don't really do much about it until it's like too late,
you have like the news.
And to me, it's like, or
interviewing like a 6-year-old. And the 6-year-old's like, oh, when a shooting happens at their school, they're like, oh, I was expecting this to happen.
Yeah, I was expecting it. So the devious lick thing is such a good point, because it's like, when you get to like middle school, I feel like locally that's where it was really bad, was in middle school. Yeah. Well, because when you get to middle school, you're really starting to like think like more. I feel like I have a 13-year-old, and I feel like she does think a lot more introspectively about things. And I feel like so many of the middle schoolers are just like, well, these people don't give a fuck about me enough to stop me from having to go and do the active shooter drill once a month. Why should I give a shit about their, what were they stealing? Urinals and shit like that? Like,
sinks. One so smart board.
Why should I care? Yeah, why should I give a shit about this, like, doing what I'm being asked, like, not vandalizing these things or not stealing these things?
And that's what I said earlier,
people,
is that,
like, do not care about me.
Yeah, that's why at the beginning I said that's why I believe that chaos is an effective method of protest, is because ultimately is that it is proof that the system is failing. Is that chaos is like the whole point of a society is to make sure we're all like.
Okay, one thing I want to say something. Yeah. All right, so there was a video that was Eminem and Lil Wayne made a song a long time ago called "Drop the World." And in the video, there was all of this shit happening, riots, all this stuff. And a lot of people during the whole BLM protests and all the protests that were just happening in general pointed to that video and said, yeah, they're like, this is predicting the future. Like they predicted the future in this video.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
and also what Lil Wayne was saying when he was like, I know what they don't want to tell you in the song. And I was like, damn, that shit's crazy. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's all connected,
Well, it is, because it is like, it's like what they don't want to tell you is like what I just said, is that like the FBI killed Fred Hampton. Mm-hmm. The FBI killed Martin Luther King. The FBI killed Malcolm X, right? Like the reason why these people are always attacked is because the old, like we said, you are not built perfect. You are flawed. You are part of a greater tapestry, of a greater whole. And where you are imperfect, there's an imperfect person who is perfect at what you are flawed at, and that person is there to help you. And that is the antithesis of capitalism, where this is a dog-eat-dog world, that this is human nature to somehow to not want to fucking live longer. It's ultimately is that we're convinced that that we are alone, right? Mm-hmm. That we are individuals, that we are, that liberty begins and ends at the person, right? Then you are built perfect. And that is what is wholly at odds with what the world is, what we need is more connectivity. And that's why I say is that we've said is that it is very hard to want to raise a child, or said there's hopelessness in it. But I think that ultimately that's also why having a child is forever going to be a revolutionary act, because it is in spite of this, it is the want and the promise of a better world. Because what I hope is through all of this is that the chaos and the breakdown, as we can understand, is that you do not inherit a world from the prior generations. You borrow it from the future. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have to be cognizant of that in every action we do as people, because otherwise you're going to create the most poisonous thing in the world. And I believe that's cynicism. And what you're seeing is with everything like this, people walking off the job, right? Avoiding the pretense, right? I have put up with so much abuse at work, but because I'm a good millennial, I still always put in 2 weeks notice, right? I always try to do things by the book, even though the book has never benefited from me, right? I did everything, I did everything right. I did everything like a good capitalist American would. And I somehow, again, my father could buy a home in San Francisco driving a truck, yet I live in a dual income household. No, actually a trip, because I have to live in a multi-generational household now, is that despite having the same kind of work as my dad, I'm worse off than he was. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is proof that the system doesn't work, because a working system makes things better for everyone, right? Not less and less every day, as we're seeing.
Back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, if you pissed the right way, you could buy a house.
Yeah, I'd say, well, as long as you were white, you know. Like,
Yeah.
but like I said, as I am as a white guy, like I'm a 3-time college dropout, like a 3-time junior college dropout. With that credential, I would be a foreman making the equivalent of $350,000 a year. And every day I wake up and I think to myself, why the fuck am I not doing that?
I think I heard a statistic that said in the United States, if wages kept up with current rates of productivity, the minimum wage right now would be like $40 an hour.
Yeah, it would be insane. I said the average if we divvied up, and this is what I say, if we divvied up the wealth generated in a year equally amongst families, we would all make $750,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I said, like, that probably won't work.
No.
But I'm saying that means that there's a guy who's that means is that there's a man making zero who should live with dignity, and there's a man making $100 billion during a pandemic who needs to have his fucking rocket, his dick rocket, confiscated and nationalized for the greater good.
Yeah, and even people that have good jobs, right? Even people
dick on purpose. He's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, even people that have good jobs that are making like 35, 40 an hour, when you're making that much money, your employer is telling you, well, I could pay you $80 an hour, but I'm going to pay you $40 an hour.
Oh, yeah. Or look at people like my husband. You know, my husband makes a pretty decent salary, okay? Mm-hmm. But they're constantly putting him in this position of like, okay, well, so you'll go ahead and work an 18-hour shift, right? And you're okay with covering all the utilities for the last 2 years, right? Yeah. By working at home. That's what we do. We pay all the, he works
Oh, yeah. I've seen some of your tweets.
Our electric bill, our electric bill is like double what it normally is. And they're like, okay, well, you have a really good salary and we've signed you on for a contract. So obviously you're okay with that, right? Or you're okay with working every Saturday and,
yeah, no, you don't get to fucking decide that.
Like yeah, and it's like, I feel like, and especially people like my husband are conditioned to kind of like believe like, well, yeah, I'm so fortunate. I have a good job. I have a good salary.
Yeah, you're lucky to have a job. It's such a gaslight.
All I'm saying is that's yeah, because I mean, we all have to work. Unfortunately, we all have to work. So it's like, yeah, you do have a good job. Unfortunately, but for the circumstances, they could be better.
Yeah. No, but you're not. It's not a good job if you're working like 18-hour.
No, that's not good. That's not good.
And like, and that's what we're conditioned to believe. You know, we're conditioned to believe.
It is.
American
Hustle
standards
culture
are so low that a good job means okay hourly and benefits.
Well, it goes beyond that too. We consider
we're conditioned for sure. Like we're conditioned. It shouldn't be like that. But
we consider like working 70 hours a week as being patriotic.
Yeah. Okay, that's not cool. No, that's like that's like crazy. I had a friend that did that.
That's what we do in the U.S.
He worked for Coke, and he would work almost 60 hours a week, like a fuck ton of hours, like literally Monday.
Die for capitalism.
Yeah, Monday through Saturday he would work, and he worked 12-hour days, sometimes 13-hour days over, and he was working really hard and, talked about it all the time. And then they just let him go. One day they were like, oh, yeah. And he kept trying like super hard to like get into the factory because I was like where he wanted to be. And then they just let him go. They're like, oh, no. As soon as he wanted a promotion, they're like, oh, yeah, bye. Yeah. And it's like, it's fucked up. It's a fucked up situation. So, and like at Coke, that wasn't an easy job, man. Like you get up at like 4 a.m, work till about I don't even know, it's 12 to 2.
Or they're like, oh, you want to strike? You want higher wages? We'll just move to Mexico.
Exactly.
Or the shit they're doing with John Deere right now, they're going to cut their benefits to break the strike.
That's not going to happen.
Sorry, Heather, were you going to say something?
People have too much power. We have way too much power.
Well, no, I mean, I think that the other thing about it is it's becoming kind of like like the conversation is like now it's not just say, oh, well, at least you have a job, but you have a job in what you want to do, and you should bend over backwards even more, like your friend with
it's
the
never
pastor,
enough.
Let's say he had gotten a promotion. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, now you're willing to do even more. Again, not to, lambaste my husband, but, he's working in what he wanted to do, and so he's willing to work those 18-hour shifts like it's no big deal, and it considers that a privilege to do that, to work, in the industry you want to work in. And I just, it becomes a very toxic cycle to me.
But I do have to say that it's like, in the reality we live in now, it is. Like, in the reality that we live in right now, like, it is. It's like, it sucks that it is.
Yeah. I think the whole point is that we're now I think we're in the greatest position
to fix it,
to make that,
it will be fixed. I have faith that honestly, we're already pretty much borderline socialists in California, at least. I'm sure everyone. Are you from California too?
I'm from California, and I
wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah, like where is that coming from?
But we are progressive in comparison to the rest of the United States.
Exactly,
I would say that.
Exactly what I'm trying to say. So I'm not saying we're full socialists or anything. But when you're hungry and you don't have a job, you could get food stamps.
Yeah, and I think
you get free medical care. You get.
There's like 40.
You get unemployment, so in a way we're taking a step closer to that than any other.
California's gonna be the catalyst, especially with free healthcare for all. So I think it's gonna be similar to like what happened in Canada, where it's gonna be in Canada it was one province after another got universal healthcare. And then eventually they just made it a national policy for the whole country. So I think that's what's going to happen in the U.S. It'll be California and then probably like New York and a few other progressive states, maybe Washington, Oregon. And then eventually we'll have enough movement and we'll have enough progressives in Congress where we'll get a federal Medicare for all.
And probably even a UBI. I think that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, these things are inevitable. I think just what's so frustrating is that it's
keep our foot on the gas pedal.
Is that literally the people that we promised to help get the ball rolling on this are now like, oh man, it's that parliamentarian. They're just really fucking putting.
Just can't do anything about Joe Manchin.
Oh, you just don't understand. You just sorry, you just don't understand.
Yeah, sorry, honey. These things take time.
But you elected me to understand for you.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
West Virginia, by the way, where Joe Manchin is from, has a long history of socialism and unions.
It's one of the, I said it's like the Battle of Blair Mountain and things like that. Like, there are so many.
I have a really bad feeling that a Republican is going to win presidency.
Well, yeah, because what happens is that they do this shit where it's like, oh yeah, our hands are tied. We're trying so hard. Oh gosh, golly, we really want to do this. Come on, we want to pass these things. Okay, well, why aren't you passing them? Well, we need more votes. So the midterms, that's the most important election in history. Everything is going to hinge on that. It's you said that about 2020. Why when Barack Obama, even though they like to talk about how Barack Obama had a filibuster-proof majority for 9 months or whatever, it's well, in that 9 months, make Puerto Rico or make DC a state. If you have, if you're really trying to pass these things, right? If you understand that democracy is at the threat, right? That a Donald Trump can get reelected. Why can't you just say, hey, Manchin, Cinema, we have to make DC a state today. We could do that, whatever. And it's
people,
you mean it will secure our party's hegemony for the next 30 years? Yeah, absolutely. But
because for all of these people, it sounds cliche, but politics is literally a game to them. They don't view it as I'm making decisions that impact people's lives.
That's why I think a guy like Pete Buttigieg is so nefarious, because it's just literally this talking resume who
and then the neo-libs are it's progressive because he's gay.
Yeah.
It's all a chess game to them. It's
that's what I said. Is that, but you don't want a guy who thinks that way, because look what you end up when you have a guy who thinks he's the next fucking Gary Kasparov for negotiating a trade deal.
Yeah.
that guy is not doing things for the greater good. He's doing it because he thinks that'll put him in a record book.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, guys. Well, it's after 10. Right. I got to go. Had a great time talking with you all. Do you have anything that you'd each like to plug real quick? Ways that people can get a hold of you?
I just say, check out One Big Toilet Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, I think on most things. And then
any new episodes coming up?
Yeah, I got a few in the tank, so I forget what's here and there. But I got one. We do Spooktoberfest at NRQ, where my sister podcast reviews movies, and then some of the politics podcasts I talk about like something transparently that the government has admitted to, and like the spies beholden to that. So I did one on the Church Committee, Operation Gladio, and then a little brief history of the Christian Weston Chandler saga, the internet's most trolled person, and how I think that has led to other things like in the world. So just check me out there. Again, it's the number one Big Toilet Podcast. Just search that. You'll find my socials, podcast, everything.
Cool. Taj, you have anything you want to plug?
Just look me up on YouTube, Taj Bibi Official, at gmail.com.
Perfect.
You know, Jordan, I always forget to plug my blog. So HeatherChristinaSchmidt.com. It's so simple, but my Christina is spelled with an E. So HeatherChristinaSchmidt.com, and everything is from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your night.
All right, you too.
All right, peace out.
Thanks, you too.
805 Uncensored is on all major social media platforms, including Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also email us if you have any suggested episode ideas or guests that you'd like me to have on. Our email is 805uncensored@gmail.com. All right, good night, everyone.